Lion King, directed by Jon Favreau, is the newest animated/live-action remake of a Disney classic of the same name. The story follows young Simba, who's the son of the mighty King Mufasa. Simba tries to learn how to be a great king under the leadership of his father, but Mufasa's brother Scar is also vying for the throne. As Simba matures and grows, he must learn how to be his own king and face off against the evil Scar. Alright, so before I get into my review of this film, let me just tell you how I approached it. I've seen the classic animated film several times, but they were all like 20 years ago when I was a young kid. I do, of course, remember the most pivotal scenes and the most important songs and the general outline of what happens in the story, but instead of rewatching the 1994 version and going into this one with clear expectations, I wanted to go and see this iteration and judge it on its own merit. I wanted to view this version as its own film, a film that should further modernize the Lion King story and offer something that feels familiar yet fresh. So just so you're aware of that, that's how I'm judging this film, as an individual film separate from any other iteration. With that said, it's an okay, enjoyable time overall, but it's not quite as strong of a film as I and probably many others wanted it to be. I expected Jungle Book quality, which is one of the best films to come out in recent years in my opinion, and Lion King doesn't meet that standard. Let's start with something fairly obvious and let's be a little bit positive to start. The movie looks gorgeous. It's like 99.9% CGI, and the Pride Lands, the lions, and the other animals, the lighting, it all looks outstanding. This is easily one of the best looking films I've ever seen. I do understand that the story should always take priority, but I also don't want to diminish the achievements of the VFX team that created this film. The goal of producing characters and a setting that's as lifelike as possible was definitely achieved, and those achievements cannot be overlooked in my opinion. Let me also say that Timon and Pumbaa are the best characters in the film, hands down. When they enter the picture, the film is funnier, it's more fun, and it just feels like it has more energy. It's just a better film, period. And it's crazy to say that two supporting characters add that much quality to the overall package, but they really do. Seth Rogan and Billy Eichner are perfect castings for Timon and Pumbaa. They play different types of characters with different styles of humor, but they play off of one another very well. They also mesh well with Simba, which helps because it helps our protagonist grow into the hero he's supposed to be. But as soon as Simba connects with Timon and Pumbaa, the film really does kick it up a notch and starts to hit its stride. A couple other positives. Firstly, I really like Scar. I think Chiwetel Ejiofor did a nice job bringing this new Scar to life. I think he's smart, he's conniving, he's powerful, and he's the opposite to Simba and Mufasa in many ways. His character design, I actually like too. I know a lot of people were upset because Scar stood out a bit more in the animated film because he was more orange, but I think the design for this realistic look in this type of film was what they were going for, and I do think it works. My last positive is the music. I think all the songs are well performed and well placed, and Hans Zimmer did an awesome job producing a score that helps make the story feel dramatic and adventurous. From what I hear, it's very, very similar to the original, but again, I'm trying to view this Lion King as its own movie and judge the film narrowly as its own film. So, with that said, time for the negatives. To start, The Lion King takes itself way too seriously at times. There's very little humor before Timon and Pumbaa show up, and the drama never quite feels like it's as tense as it should be or progressive for the characters, and really just the first 40 minutes or so are pretty underwhelming. Besides the stampede scene that everyone knows about, it's iconic for a reason, there's not much in that first 40 minutes that really grabs you. You get to see Mufasa and Simba have one or two cool bonding moments, but that's about it in terms of character development. There's opportunities the film has to do something development-wise for the core cast of characters, but it never quite felt like it knew how to get there. The most you learn about Simba in the beginning of the film is that he wants to prove himself and he's Mufasa's son. That's really it. I mean, it's just not enough to get me invested in his character. Speaking of Simba, and he's not the only one, but I do feel like Donald Glover was a bit of a miscast. And when you combine that with a weakly, poorly written character, it's not good. I think he sings very well, and he's obviously an insanely talented actor, but there's nothing memorable about his voicing of the character. Simba doesn't feel all that special. It doesn't feel like he has much confidence in himself, and he just isn't that interesting of a character. And I get the lack of confidence is part of his character, but he's just not that interesting voice, or writing or otherwise. It just felt to me like Simba needed a bit more personality in his voice because he feels very flat in this film. The other character to me that feels this way is Nala. I mean, Nala and Simba play extremely important roles in this film, but I felt like Donald Glover and Beyonce just felt a little flat. I mean, it felt like they didn't put much of their own stamp on the characters, and because of that, they feel bland. Another issue I have is the lions themselves. While they look great, they show very, very little emotion. It's tough to really connect with any of the lions because they just are pretty flat in their expressions throughout the entire film. A lot of emotion is felt in what you're seeing in the eyes and on the face, but with these lions, it just feels the same pretty much no matter what's going on around them or what they're even saying or feeling. What you end up with are characters that you just can't fully connect with. I do think this is partly playing into my feelings on miscast and flat characters, but I do also feel that the voices don't really add much either. It's a multi-factored equation here. I think The Jungle Book did a lot better job with their animal characters and showing emotion and being able to connect with the characters. This is probably aided a bit by having a human character in the leading role that does show emotion, but I also feel it's maybe just the nature of the animals themselves too. Another negative for this film would be, that's fair to point out in my opinion, would be the similarities between the original and this remake. From what I remember about the film, there are a lot of them, too many, but I didn't want to rewatch the original, like I said, because I hope to judge this film as on its own merit, as I mentioned, just as its own thing. So looking at what this remake offers, it's a very mixed bag. Some of it is very enjoyable and parts of it are very underwhelming. I think that general audiences will end up liking this movie because of the cool visuals and the nostalgia it offers. But, when you're judging it based on its high standards that were already established by the original, it doesn't get close to where it should be. As for the pros cons, for the pros, I think the visuals are remarkable, the music and score are good, Timon and Pumbaa are a blast, and Scar was a good villain. As for the cons, I think the lions feel lifeless, Simba and Nala don't offer much personality, and the film lacks emotion. I'm going to give Lion King a 7.5 out of 10, and generally recommend you go see it in theaters, but I don't think this is a must-see or anything. I do think general audiences will like it, but it's not without its flaws. So did you guys see The Lion King? What did you think of it? And if not, let me know why not. And also let me know your favorite classic animated Disney film. For me, it's probably Mulan, but there are really too many good choices. Classic can mean whatever you want it to mean, just think a little bit older. Either way, this is WillFoxification signing off. See you in the next video.